everybody, and welcome to the Parenting and Bonding with Children's Book Podcast, where we believe that books are magic and have the power to transform homes. On this podcast, we talk to the authors behind the magic to find out the true intentions behind the books. And tonight we are here with Leslie Gang, co-founder of Hindy's Libraries. Hi, Leslie.
Hi, how are you? I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so happy to have you here. How are you feeling today?
Listen, I'm great. We're away in Florida in the beautiful sun.
Oh,
So
wow.
I'm having a great day so far.
Oh, so it's always so fun to talk to people like on the podcast when they're on vacation because I wonder, like you're in a whole different kind of mood right now, right? Like it's
Totally.
so relaxed.
Totally. I mean, I don't know what day it is, what time it is, which is so different than my normal life. I'm always
Mhm.
too aware of what I need to do and accomplish. So it's kind of nice to just relax.
It's nice to relax and escape, which is one of the main reasons why we're here today because we want our children to be able to escape through books, right?
Absolutely.
Yes, it's a beautiful thing. So, Hindi, where are you from? Leslie, where are you from? I'm thinking about
So
Hindy's libraries
it's,
already.
it's all good. I am from Long Island, New York, born and bred. And as soon as you guys hear me talk a little more, you'll hear the accent shining right through with my Long Island accent.
So I've already heard it. So I'm from New Jersey. So
Ah,
whenever I speak to somebody who's from because I've been in Dallas now for I don't know almost 5 years. So whenever I speak with somebody from the East Coast, it's like the first thing I pick up on.
you hear it right away. Yeah.
Yeah, right away. And I'm like, oh, home, give me some good bread.
Yeah. Totally.
So, guys, we're going to talk about Hindy's libraries a bit later into the conversation. But when we get there, you'll know why I kind of preemptively said Hindy's, called her Hindy, right? Because the story around Hindy's library is so inspiring. But we have so much more to talk about before then. Tell us a bit about yourself, Leslie.
So I am 36, turning 37 tomorrow. Woohoo.
Oh, happy
Um,
birthday.
we call it 35 again and again. Like while we're in the pandemic and we don't feel like we can really break free, we're just calling it 35 again and again, and as many times I need to do it. Um, I am the mommy of two. I have two kids. My daughter is going to be 10. My son is going to be 8 very shortly. I am the director of admissions and communications at a private school in Long Island. And I'm the co-founder of a nonprofit, which we will discuss shortly. And I'm a big theater nerd. So that's like the one thing I always like to say. Living in New York, I am very fortunate to have the ability to go see shows on Broadway, in the Paper Mill Playhouse in New Jersey, and kind of see things come to fruition. I love singing. I love dancing. I love music. So being a theater nerd is kind of in my blood. And yeah, it's really a little bit about me.
I love it. So when my time in New Jersey, I went to Rutgers University, and one of the best experiences I had, even though I didn't like going to the class, was theater appreciation because we got to hop on a train, what, once or twice a week to go into New York to
Oh,
see a
amazing.
play. And it was like, I don't know if I appreciated it as much back then, but when I look back on it, especially thinking about the professor, it was an amazing experience. Even though I got lost in New York so many times, I can't
Yeah.
understand the train system.
Yeah, no, I still don't understand it. My husband went to NYU, so when we were dating, he was kind of like this. You need to go. I have a lot of friends that say when we meet in the city, "Are you facing north or south?" I don't know. I'm facing the theater. They're like, "Is it east or west?" I'm like, I don't know. I can tell you, I'm like terrible at it. Um, I know uptown, downtown. That's it. So,
Yeah.
but it's fun living in New York and having, for you having the ability to be in New York City. It's
Hmm.
definitely a memorable experience, I think.
Yeah, certainly is. So you have a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old. I also have an 8-year-old son, Aidyn, who this is all named after.
Ah, love it.
So yeah, so we have that in common. And so I was going to surprise you with a question later, but I'll ask you now because you're into theater. We have a lot of parents in the community, like they kind of age out of where I'm at because I talk about picture books and children's picture books. And they're like trying to go into chapters, right? What book, because people talk about Shakespeare and things like that all the times and preparing your kids for that type of literature, what would you think would be a good starter book?
Great question. Actually, being that I'm always surrounded by books due to the nonprofit,
Yeah.
I recently came across chapter books of the major Shakespeare plays. It was like a kid illustrated version of Macbeth and Hamlet and Romeo and Juliet. And I right away let my children borrow those just so they can kind of grasp, the stories. I'm very big into graphic novels, which actually was brought about by Hindi and her family. And if you really search, I have bought my daughter Anne of Green Gables as a graphic novel.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen several young adult books being transformed into a more kid-friendly type of story. So
Yeah.
they get the basis of it, but not necessarily the language that might be too difficult to understand. But when
Yeah.
I saw that book of Shakespeare for, let's say, upper, lower grades, let's say it looked like it was for somewhere around third through fifth grade, like really beautifully illustrated chapter books that didn't seem too overwhelming. Those are great intros, I think, to the big novels and novellas that we read as young adults and adults.
Yeah, I would have to agree. So that when they get to high school and they're facing that heavy type of language, they have a foundation. They know what's going on in the story, know the plot, how it's set up, everything like that, and it just makes it so much easier to understand. Thanks for that, Leslie.
Of course, of course.
So your book, Family is Forever. I'm so excited to talk about it. Tell us about. Do you have it with you? I know you're on vacation.
So yes, I brought it. This is my book, but Family is Forever, illustrated by Misha Narducci. And I'll tell you a little bit about it, if I may.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
so again, being the co-founder of a nonprofit where we basically deal with books all the time, over the pandemic, when you remember that time when like no one wanted to touch each other, look at each other, go near each other, we were all too scared.
Yeah,
So, and we were all at home because no one wanted to even you had to pray before you went to the supermarket because no one knew what was out there.
yeah,
That crazy time. So during that time, being at home, I was able to really work a lot with the books in the house that we had from our donations. And at some point, after working with so many, I kind of looked at myself and said, I'm going to try to make one. Just out of nowhere, I'm like, I'm going to try to write one. I love to rhyme always. I'm that nerd that a birthday card from me will rhyme. A Facebook post from my mother on her birthday will rhyme.
yeah,
If someone needs a song, they're gonna call me to help it rhyme for their kids, color war challenge. So I knew if I was gonna write it, it was gonna be rhyming.
yeah,
And I started writing. I started writing about my kids and things that my kids and I love to do as hobbies, but coming back to the fact on each page that beyond all else, family matters the most. And when I say family, I don't necessarily mean your blood, because it might not be blood. It might be that friend that supported you from day one, that feels like your soul sister, like she is your honorary family. It might be that relative that raised you, or that friend that raised you, that, older person in your life who is family to you. Those are the people that matter. And I find that in the pandemic, we kind of remembered that after so many years of looking around cultures and communities and kids, people kind of forgot, right? Like
yeah,
technology took over, the internet took over, Roblox and Netflix, and it all took over. And you kind of that was what mattered, and work mattered. And then coming back into the time of COVID, where you were really nervous for everyone around you that you loved, did you go outside? Did you wear gloves? Did you wear triple gloves? Did you sanitize 35 times and not, you really remembered, hey, that's what matters. So
mhm,
that kind of is what inspired me to write it. And it's a very short book. It's 24 pages. And something I wanted to focus on, I'll give you a little bit of info about me, is growing up. I grew up in a very small community where we were not exposed to the world, which is why I'm now a theater fanatic, love Broadway, love New York City, love exploring everything. So we were kind of taught that family should look like XYZ. And if it doesn't, that's wrong. And that's not what it should be. And that's all I knew. And I'll tell you, when I saw Rent as a teenager, I kind of came home and looked at my mom and I'm like, what is happening in the world? Rent, by the way, is a Broadway show that came out in the 90s that talked about HIV, AIDS, and homosexuality, and sexual intercourse and drugs and just the world, right? The world in the 90s in the East Village. And growing up in this sheltered environment, I was blown. Forget about that. The music is unreal. And if you haven't listened, now's the time. Go pause this, go listen. You'll love it. You'll thank me later. But when I came home, I'm like, does this happen? Is this real? And the internet was not really such a thing. You kind of had AOL with that weird noise to, find internet, but you couldn't learn things. That was the time where if your parents didn't want you to know something, you really couldn't find it. And so that broke my glass bubble. And I became very involved in the community service, moving on to college. I focused a lot on HIV/AIDS awareness and just things I never had the opportunity to learn about or be exposed to as a young adult. And so this book, in addition to reminding everybody that family matters most, I really wanted each page to represent a different type of family. Which, by the way, I don't know if I would have told you if I kept going in this life I had led, as a kid. So I knew that, and by the way, I grew up with a single mom. So even my family didn't look the way a family's supposed to look, like, what do you do on Father's Day? Well, I thank my mom for being a mom and a dad. That might not be your norm, but that's my norm. So I knew that I didn't want to feel left out as someone raised by a mom, but there are so many others who might not see themselves represented when reading with their parents in books. So every page features a different family dynamic, and I'm going to try to show you. And you could kind of see very clearly, you see, a grandmother here, a big sister there. You see, let's say, two moms, multiracial families. This is important. This is the world, and children need to know that not only is this the world, but we need to respect one another and understand that we come from different families. And so this is the book, and I found this wonderful illustrator who was trying to grow her portfolio, and she basically didn't charge a thing because every dollar I make from this book, whatever is my cut as the author, is being donated to the nonprofit. And I expressed that right away. I'm not here to make money off of it. My goal is to share the story and hopefully package a copy of each book in every box we ship, and just get that out there so kids can read it at bedtime and say, oh my God, my family looks kind of like that. Yeah. I didn't always see growing up. So that's a little bit about the book itself.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I guess that's a good segue into Hindy's Libraries. But before we get there, I just want to say something to those that are listening. Leslie, thank you so much for sharing your story. I grew up with a single mom as well, and also grew up knowing and believing that family is supposed to look a certain way. And, for those listening, no matter what you believe, your kids are going to see it. And I was talking to a mom the other day, and this is related but not, right? Always do this. And her son, who is taking an extraordinary amount of time for some reason in this country for kids to be tested if they're perceived to be on a spectrum. So not an official diagnosis, but she believes him to be on a spectrum. And she's concerned about how other children will treat him at the park, at the grocery store, in school, here and there. And most of that comes from when our kids come upon something that they're not used to seeing and they have a reaction that is not kind. It is usually because their parents have not discussed these things with them. They haven't had a conversation of different. They haven't had the conversation about differences. They haven't. And it's so important to introduce and to talk to our kids about these things, because no matter what you believe, everybody deserves kindness. Everybody deserves respect, and everybody deserves to be loved. So, and this is across color, race, just everything we can think of when it comes, to diversity. So yeah, I just wanted to say that. And you mentioned that all of the proceeds of this book go to the nonprofit Hindy's Libraries. And I just want to point out that since its inception, if I read this right, in 2018, you've donated over 300,000 books.
Yeah.
That
more. Yeah.
That is, I'm sorry. Guys, y'all know I'm all about books, and every once in a while I'm able to donate a few. The fact that And I know there are other organizations and things like that, but the story behind Hindi's libraries, Leslie just sitting here today with, with this book, and the fact that they're donating spans across 50 states, right? Israel, India, Puerto Rico, Haiti, Africa, over three, almost at 400,000 books. Tell us about Hindi's libraries. How did it start?
So it's a very bittersweet story. I kind of like to say I'd rather not be sitting here with you talking about it and only talking about the
Yeah.
book. I have been in the private school sector working on the communications field for many years. And for a while, I was working at a local school doing kind of what I do now, basically, communicating about the school to the community, overseeing recruitment efforts, working with new families who are admitted to the school, fundraising, and so on. And part of my role had been to really highlight the amazing teachers because that's why people will choose our school. In a community where there are many private schools and your tuition dollars can go to anyone, you have to think about what makes us different. And
Mm-hmm.
so there was this teacher that when we were recruiting for the high school, I kind of was taught to me in the beginning, this is who you need at the forefront, Leslie, of your parlor meetings and open houses, because once they meet this woman named Hindi Krinsky, they're enrolling their kids on the spot because she's just this dynamic person. Meet her and you'll see why. So Hindi Krinsky was an educator in the high school. She taught English, and she was just recently going to be promoted to the curriculum coordinator of general studies, kind of overseeing the curriculum across the board. And she was 32, kooky, wild, hilarious, brilliant, adorable. And everyone loved her. And not even the kids who loved Shakespeare or Mouse or whatever. Everyone loved her. The kid that was struggling in English and writing, she took them under her wing and said, I'm going to help you succeed and love it while you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And in addition to that, she was the mother of 5 children, 4 of whom had already been enrolled in the school at the time where I worked. So that's kind of background on where we were. And in
Mm-hmm.
2018, like you said, she passed away very suddenly from a complication of Crohn's. Meaning, like, she went into the hospital with her husband with a stomach ache, and unfortunately, it was so extreme at the time. By the time she got that checked out, she did not make it out of the hospital that day, and it was crazy. I got the phone call from her husband to like share this information with everybody. So I remember like
Wow.
running around my front yard at 6 a.m. in my nightgown. Like, what does that mean? What, I have to make this call now to, you didn't want to even process it.
Yeah.
It was a chaotic day, and everyone was numb, really just processing this news that this mother of 5 who was just about to go back to school and do these incredible things, she's gone. Then you keep processing, what does that mean for the children? Her baby was 1. Like, what does this mean? Um, and so my role in the school basically became, at this point, I was collecting information from the community. That means teenagers who wanted to babysit, local, restaurants that wanted to donate meals, local after-school programs, the karate studio, the art studio. They wanted to donate after-school programs because now you're looking at it, one dad on 5 kids,
Mm.
trying to balance everything
Mm-hmm.
while grieving, which is unimaginable and
Yeah.
crazy. So I started basically calling her husband David and saying, I'm not going to bother you because I cannot imagine what's going through your head. I'm going to just take lists of everything people are calling the school about, whether it's a backpack or headbands for the girls or, carpooling. I'm going to make lists. And when you're ready, I'll tell you details, but it's there for you when you need it. So David, her husband, and I developed a friendship simply because I was communicating what the school and local area wanted to do for the family. A couple of weeks later, one of the principals called me and asked my opinion on what we can do to honor her legacy on campus, primarily for the older children. There were triplets who were 8. Like, they're the ones really, everyone's emotional, but as children, they're really processing this. They really understand what's happening, maybe a little more so than the 4-year-old and 1-year-old. What can we do in her memory that's appropriate? So we hired a custodian to go to Home Depot, and he built a little box for us. And I called a friend who's an artist to sit with David and the kids and learn about Hindi and paint this beautiful box. And we installed it in the courtyard of the school with the premise of going under the little free library umbrella of give a book, take a book on the campus. So when these kids, have a free period or recess or reading and they want to go outside, this is an opportunity for them to enjoy Hindy's love of reading. Hindy's kids were bookworms. Hindi and David's home library was filled with hundreds of books, both adult and children's books. Reading is in their blood. So we knew it had to focus around books. Now, the ceremony took place in December of 18. It was beautiful. We asked every kid to bring one book. And it was lovely. And a few weeks later, the principal basically says in a phone call to me and David, I don't know what message you told everyone, but there are about 400 books in my office and I can't move. These are 80 kids, one book we asked. So we quickly ran, took the books, and called a few local organizations and said, we've come across a couple of hundred books. Let us drop them off by you. And as we're getting rid of these books, I always like to describe it because I cannot find a more perfect comparison. If you kind of think back to the famous I Love Lucy episode where they're working in the chocolate factory. Exactly. So we are getting rid of the books and we turn around and there are more books at our doorstep by my garage in front of my car. A friend of mine texts me, your car was open, there's books in your trunk. I'm like, what? I'm trying to get rid of them. So we realized again, a couple of months later, by like March, that there is something happening. People have been holding on to their books desperate for an outlet that they didn't even know. Their kids were outgrowing the books. So they put the books in the basement, in the attic, in a few shelves, like just to have them, never to read them again if they're done having children, but because you're not throwing out a book, it's not a worn pair of shoes. And so we were this outlet that these people were subconsciously desperate for. And at that moment, Hindy's Libraries was officially born, where we said, we're going to do something with this. So fast forward, where we originally were picking up books from people, driving them to local recipients, we're now shipping all over the country, partnering with other groups to ship internationally. And yeah, we've collected almost 400,000 books with the support of amazing Girl Scouts, Rotary groups, Kiwanis groups, children's authors. We do wild campaigns to kind of invite more people to join us. And it's been awesome. It's been a journey we take one day at a time.
I want more of the story. I'm sorry. I'm so drawn in. I just can't.
It's wild. Wild.
So I can only imagine, first of all, when you mentioned that I Love Lucy episode, for the people who are just going to be listening on audio, like many of you, we knew exactly what episode she was talking about as soon as she started. And I remember one day in our Facebook community, like this is about the time that we first got started, and I was just posting resources like in the group. And I posted like where to send your books, like where to donate your books. And the reason I posted that is because I had been trying to donate books and I was reaching out to like different, like, organizations. And there was so many questions. Like before, I'm like, I'm trying to give you, I'm trying to give books. Like, why? There was so many questions. And so I posted when I found the resource, like where to send, where I could send books without a whole bunch of back and forth. Posted it in the group and got like several messages. Thank you. I was looking for a place to send my books. And so it's kind of hard to imagine that when you have these books, it's hard to offhand them.
Right.
And so an organization like yours, for so many reasons, it's just essential. And the fact that you've been able to donate and help in so many different countries across the states is just a beautiful thing. And I really, like you said, I wish we weren't here talking about it today, but we are. And I commend you for your work and everything that you've been doing. So really, thank you. Can I ask you a question?
Always. I'm an open book. Pun intended.
That was good. We like jokes here. So how is Dr. Hindy's family?
Now?
Yeah.
David just got remarried. By the way, David is my co-founder now, and he just got remarried to a girl I've known for 20 years, who brings her own 2 children to this Brady Bunch family. And
wow,
they are amazing children, all of them. They have just volunteered with us. Last week, we had a local packaging and labeling event at our new space. they've always been so strong, and kind of my motivation for moving forward
Yeah.
in this nonprofit is just seeing all of these people, the father, the children, just, I mean, dealing with this tragedy, and they're an inspiration. And I urge anyone, if anyone who's listening is going through any sort of struggle or tough time, David is always happy to speak about how he was able to just move forward, rather, like wake up and get out of bed, because I don't know that I could. I can't imagine what that's like.
Yeah.
So her oldest are now in sixth grade, I believe. I'm pretty sure sixth grade. Her
Hmm.
triplets. Then her the next daughter Dorit is in third grade, and AB is in kindergarten.
Okay.
Okay, and they're amazing. A wonderful group of people, and David's wife Batsheva is an amazing human. They make this adorable, beautiful couple, and I'm so happy. Yeah, they've been strong since day one. Really, like amazing.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. I'm sure it was on the mind of many listening. So where can we find your book?
Oh, my book's available on Amazon.
Okay.
Um, it's called "But Family Is Forever."
Yeah.
We have some social media pages. I kind of link it to Hindi's Libraries also, so you could actually go on that website, hindislibraries.org. You could visit our social media, and you'll see posts about the book itself. I really don't try to self promote. That's not what we're about. But since the money's going to Hindi's, I might stick it in there a couple times.
Hmm.
Um, and if you have books, we have, if I may, I want to share two different ways that anyone listening can work with us. And I'm not asking for money at this point. I'm just saying, to those who have books or want to support their community, something we've been doing is growing what we do elsewhere. I'm working with people across the country to run book drives and not necessarily ship them back to me, but we're finding recipients in your community that can drive. A local homeless shelter, a community center, a foster care agency that is within 1 hour or so from you, that we've either already partnered with, or we can work together to find this, and we can donate books together to them. We've done this a lot. It's been really worthwhile for the person on the other end working with us, because they're
Hmm.
supporting their community. Um, Otherwise, we have partnered with a wonderful company called Give Back Box, and you could find this on our site as well, where for $15 you could fill up like a refrigerator box, like
Hmm.
a 5 foot box with 100 pounds of books. The shipping label costs only $15, which is a lot less than what we spend when we ship our books elsewhere. And that could be sent over to us. So we've worked with Girl Scouts and local schools and lower schools and middle schools, and they've done drives and shipped us boxes. So like, imagine I'm coming home from work, and my husband texts me. He's like, I cannot lift this box that was just delivered today, and I cannot park in my driveway because there's a refrigerator box outside that's full of books. But that box costs only $15 to send, as long
Hmm.
as you could carry it to UPS. And that those are two great ways we're working. But our goal is really to have everyone feel empowered to run these drives in your community for your community. It might not be your town or the town over, but it might be half an hour away or an hour and a half away,
Hmm.
to do good. And this is kind of our goal, to expand in this way and to give everyone that same feeling of making a difference, because it is so easy to do that.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I'm sure that many of the people that are listening are, guys, I'm going to put the website up here again for the people that are watching in the group and on our platforms. And for those of you that are just listening, Hindi's, HINDIS, libraries.org. It'll also be in the notes in the description of the show. I want to thank you so much, Leslie, for coming and joining us today, telling us your story and just how Hindi's Libraries came about. Excited to read your book, But Family is Forever. And I'll tell you, just to just to share with you, when I was reading your bio and I saw the line "But family is forever," I thought it was a transition word. But
Ah,
family is forever is about it's when
oh, that's so
you
funny.
yeah. So when you held up the cover, I was like, oh, it's But Family.
It's so funny, you know, my daughter loves to write also.
Mm-hmm.
And when she saw the book, she's like, "You're not supposed to start a sentence with but." You know that?
I love it.
I'm like, it's okay. It's the title of a book. And then I'm like, I showed her, I Googled some other books that have like but or.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, it's like the part of the book. She's like, okay, but people might think you don't know that. I'm like, that's okay. So I feel you because my daughter told me also, but I don't know. It was a fun thing, and I encourage anyone who wants to write a book out there, do it. It's so much fun. The process can be totally tedious, but my publisher, Pennant Publications, they were amazing.
Mm-hmm.
They took the book. They're like, we'll work with you on anything. There are good people out there, no matter what field you're in, whether you're a writer, an illustrator, you know, an attorney, whatever it is. There are good people that want to help you in whatever it is you're looking to do. And they don't always want anything back. They do exist. It's not, you know, you just have to weed them out, but do it, go for it. Not, you know, I started this from nothing. David and I, this was not a plan. We are not staffed. We don't have employees. We both work full time and raise our own families. And we have a couple of volunteers. We don't have someone we could call and say, hey, take care of it for me. That's like me looking in the mirror. Hey, Leslie, do this today. Okay, Leslie. You know, and it can be done. If you want to do something good, go do it. People will jump on board.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for being here. And time kind of just flew.
Yeah.
Time flew by. So, Leslie, enjoy your vacation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. Have a good day, everyone.
Everybody have a great one.